made notable progress in advocating human rights and refugee rights and situations by one of their most notable programs in School of Peace and Human Rights, and then the Sunrise Refugee Learning Center, and then the Advocacy for Marginalized Community and Refugee. And also they have the International Conference for the Protection of Minors, contributed for socializing these kinds of issues to the public as well with their last webinars, which they were collaborated with some parties. It's called Taras Terbuka, Refugee Rights and the New Normal, which was released 3 months ago. And then afterwards, sorry, MC, should we now entertain the first speaker now? Hi guys, am I audible right now?
Yes, you are audible. And you may start with the first speaker.
Okay, thank you. All right, for now, I will entertain the first speaker. Our first speaker today would be Kak Sydney Ririmase, and she has various experience in volunteering. So she is a graduate from she's graduated from Bachelor Criminology, and she is right now a program director in Sandya Institute. And she has experience in mentoring and coaching and LifeSmart ID. So you can see it. So from how I see it, that she has various experience in volunteering and mentoring. And Sydney here will give us a brief introduction and an insight on the status and situation of refugee. And then she will introduce us the things that maybe for starters needs to be known if you want to know further from the refugee issues. Sydney, are you here right now?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay. Can I start now?
Yes, you may.
First, I will introduce myself again. My name is Sydney Ririmase, and I am the program director from Sandya Institute. And today I will give you a brief introduction about refugee in overview. Maybe you can show the materials I prepared. Okay, next. First, who are refugees? First, I will quote from UNHCR. Refugees are people who have fled war, violence, conflict or persecution, and have crossed an international border to find safety in another country. And next is from 1951 Refugee Confession. This is the convention that cover basis protection and rights for refugee international. So according to the 1951 Refugee Convention, refugees are someone who is unable or unwilling to return to their country of origin, owing to a well-founded fear of being persecuted for reasons of race, religion, nationality, membership of particular social group, or political opinion. So both of them sounds the same, but in 1951 Refugee Convention, they explain more detail about the threatening condition person experience. And there are state parties and non-state parties because Refugee Convention is ratified by some countries, but not every country ratified the Refugee Convention. So according to the state parties, refugees are those who have passed refugee status determination according to the state's protocol. But on the other hand, for non-state parties, refugees are those who have been identified as refugees by UNHCR. And I will explain what that further later. And this is the international overview. Next slide, please. I already mentioned about 1951 Refugee Convention relating to the status of refugees, and later there are 1967 protocol relating to the status of refugees. Basically, these two talking about the same thing, but 1951 mostly talking about the basic definition of who is and who is not refugee, and 67 is about the legal frames of refugee, their rights and their duties in the country of refugee. If we look back a little bit to the history of these two conventions, when 1951 Refugee Convention first initiated, mostly for the European country, And later in 67, the protocol made for every country in the world. And I added Article 3 from the Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman, or Degrading Treatment or Punishment, because I think this article is important for us to know and to understand if we talk about refugee. So in here, they mention that no state party shall expel, return, or refounder, or extradite a person to another state where there are substantial grounds for believing that he would be in danger of being subjected or tortured. And I added Article 33 from the Refugee Convention that also talk about same thing, said that no contracting state shall expel or return a refugee in any manner whatsoever to the frontiers of territories where his life or freedom would be threatened on account of his race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular social group, or political opinion. So these two articles state that no country can send any refugee to another state, another country, or send them back to their country of origin if there are possibilities they might face another persecution or other threatening act to them. But in Article 33.2 also state that the benefit of the present provision may not, however, be claimed by a refugee whom there are reasonable grounds for regarding as a danger to the security of the country in which he is, or who, having been convicted by a final judgment of a particularly serious crime, constitute a danger to the community of that country. So, according to this point too, if the refugee in country they currently living violates this serious crime or constitute a danger to the community, the point in Article 3 and Article 33 might be annulled. Moving on to the next slide. And I add terminologies. I think if we want to talk about refugee, we have to understand these terminologies. Next. First is my refugee. I already explained first, so we can moving on to the next terminologies. Asylum seeker. I think there are many misconceptions between refugee and asylum seeker for public, because asylum seeker and refugee both is a person that left their country to find safety in another country. They cross international border, but the main point that they differentiate asylum seeker and refugee is asylum seeker is a person who hasn't yet been legally recognized as refugee and is waiting to receive a decision on their asylum claims. So every person who left their country of origin to another country to seek refuge, to find protection in another country is asylum seeker, but not every asylum seeker is a refugee. And who decided that? If the country they currently living is a member of state parties, then the country will decide that. But if they arrive in non-state parties, then that would be decided by UNHCR. I hope you guys understand the difference. Moving on. And the last terminology I add in here is migrant, because many people confuse migrant and asylum seeker and refugee, because the three of this terminology is about a person that moving from one country to another country, crossing international border. But the key point in migrant is variety of reason and temporarily or permanently. So every person that move from their usual residence to another country, whatever the reason, for work, for studying, like international student, or in here mentioned such as smuggle migrants that violating international law, also count as migrants. So every person who moved from one country to another country is a migrant. And next. Next slide, please. Okay, the last one for me is the consequence of being non-state parties. So this is related to the state parties and non-state parties that I mentioned before about 1951 Refugee Confession. So the consequence mostly for the refugees who arrive in the country they seek refuge. So the first is refugees are excluded from the rights in the 1951 Convention. Why? Because for the country that not ratified the convention, there's no obligation for them to fulfilling the rights of the refugees. And that's really unfortunate and difficult situation for the refugees who arrive in the non-state parties, because they can get and they can claim any right that they supposed to have in the 1951 convention. So they can work, they can get education, they can move from one area to another area, because they can claim that the country they currently living have no obligation to fulfill that, and have no obligation to assist them or giving them any support. So if that's the case, then who will protect them, who will support them, who will give them assistance? That would be handled by UNHCR. For example, like in Indonesia, since we are not the state parties, all refugees who arrive in Indonesia will be handled by UNHCR. But usually, civil organizations also support refugees by giving assistance or maybe donation. Like, for example, my organization, Sandya Institute, we as non-governmental organization also support refugees by supporting them on education. We give them informal education. We also give them many forms of donation, like basic needs, and also books that we'll explain later from another speaker. And that's all for me. You can ask me questions. Just put that on the chat box. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kak Sydney. So from how Kak Sydney explained it, that it really does remind us the importance of knowing the quite possibly the related terminology, such as when she explained the differences between refugee, asylum seeker, and migrants. Those definitions really does affect their situations. And then she also explained to us how the overviews for, generally speaking, how the regulations and international law and how the states are circulating upon that issue, and how the consequences of being a non-state parties and how it affects these refugees in which UNHCR gets in. And Kak Sydney already gave us these very important brief introductions, so don't forget the differences between the refugee, asylum seeker, and migrants, guys, because just to make sure you guys won't get it too much on your head. And then next, on our second speaker, she's going to talk more in depth on the status of refugee and their situation in Indonesia. And then more elaborate details on what they are facing and quite possibly what we've done so far and maybe what we can do about it. So for our second speaker, I'm going to call Natasha Clarissa. Her experience really revolves around human resource, in which right now she is the project manager of Sandya Institute. And then she is previously the human resource assistant manager in Pull&Bear on August 2019 until August 2020. So, Natasha, are you here right now?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Hello, Natasha. You may take.
Okay. Thank you, Vanessa, for the introduction. My name is Natasha. I'm the project manager of Sandya Institute. Vanessa or the committee, maybe you can show my presentation. Okay.
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay, so in here, what Sydney has explained about is the general overview about the terminologies and then the convention that related to the refugee in worldwide. But in here, I'll explain about what Sandya have done. So I'll be specific about our organization and during this pandemic. Okay, so refugee in Indonesia, how to help them thriving in the midst of the pandemic. Next slide, please. So today I will divide the we have taken during this year to help some of the refugees in the certain locations. Sorry, next please. Okay, first is about refugee and Indonesian law. And then the second is Sandya Institute as an actor. In here, I will explain about what we have done in the specific issue of refugee. So before the pandemic. And then the third, I will explain about what the struggle faced by our refugee communities in Indonesia, but maybe in general. And then the last but not least, I will explain about what Sandya Institute has done during this difficult moment. Okay, next. Talking about the law of refugee, there's no specific law because, as Sydney has explained before, Indonesia hasn't ratified the Convention of 1951, and then Indonesian has no responsibility to fulfilling the rights of the refugee because at that moment we are non-state non-signatories. If we're talking about refugee law in Indonesia, the first highlight may be in the Indonesian immigration law at the Indonesian Constitution number 6, year 2011. At that time, 2011, we haven't really specified the terms of refugee or asylum seekers. So in here, the foreigner that have no complete document that come to Indonesia are referred as illegal immigrant. So illegal immigrant is not the right terms that supposedly can have the similar meaning with refugee or asylum seeker because the case is different. The illegal immigrant, they have intention to do something illegally, but asylum seekers and refugee, they are harmless. I'm not saying harmless, but they are seeking for refuge, seeking for protection that their country cannot provide for them. So at that time, the Indonesian Constitution number 6, 2011, they haven't specified and haven't really clarified the terms and the process when this illegal immigrant came to Indonesia at that time. But if we're looking at the recent law from the President Decree, next please. At 2016, from the President Decree number 125, we already have the terms. We already have the terms, specific terms for asylum seekers or refugee from other countries. But I'll not get specific into this law. But I want to show you the difference between these two because at that time in 2011 we haven't really acknowledged them as asylum seekers or refugee. Although we already give some of procedure to help them, but we haven't put them in Indonesian law. So in 2016, from the President Decree, we have the specific technical procedure for that. We still have no responsibility to fulfill their rights, but we at least have the specific procedure on how to handle the asylum seekers or refugee that came to Indonesia. Next. Okay, the second is Sandya Institute as an actor. As you know, Sandya Institute are focusing on the several issues, but in here I will specific on refugees. For refugees, we highlighting three action that we have to, such as research, advocate, and teaching. For research, next please. For research, with collaboration of SUAKA, and then Sandya Institute, J3 Refugee Service, and also supported by the UNHCR, we have made this Know Your Rights book, which focusing on several main issues that usually faced by the refugee. And in here, we are providing the legal base that at least they should know during their time in Indonesia. So they know what their rights or what they can be asked for or anything about the legal term. So in here we try to create a guide. It's like a guideline to the refugees so they can know the basic law for them in Indonesia. Next. For advocating, like having a dialogue with collaborating parties, not just for making the guideline, also to monitoring the current law, and then it's like when we have faced certain issue about refugee, because each year is different, the case is different, and then also to the second is creating a seminar and workshop to raise the awareness, because years ago the issue of refugee is not really it's not really sexy in the terms of the
It seems that Natasha has some signal issues. I'll try to reach for her. Okay, I have reached Natasha. We'll try to give it some minute, and I'll try to wait for her feedback. And if she replies, and I'll let you guys know for the updates and the replies. But while waiting for Natasha, maybe we can have a little discussion on what we've already talked so far. So just confirming. So everyone here, do you guys already understand the differences of the refugee, asylum seeker, and migrants? If you do, you can put a thumbs up or just use a thumbs up reaction. It's okay if you guys think it's not really clear enough. We can make the we can give you guys like a little bit more explanation just so you guys won't it won't go through your head, if that makes sense. Okay. Okay, Natasha, are you here?
Okay, sorry for the technical error.
It's okay. We continue.
Okay, the third is fundraising. As I have said before, that Sandya Institute is a non-governmental and also non-profit organization. We really rely on the donor, either from the organizations, individual, and then private sector, and so on. So we also create a fundraising event to fulfill the needs of our operational activities. Okay, next. And then the teaching. In here, we have Sunrise Refugee Learning Center. We try to help them communicate well during their time in Indonesia by giving them learning about Indonesian, how to, let's say, how to communicate in the market, and then how to communicate when they're lost. So the basic language and basic communication, either in Indonesia or English. And then next. Okay, the struggle faced by the refugee during this time, because of the pandemic, the countries become even more scared to open the door. So even before the pandemic, not all countries are welcome with the terms of refugees. So this pandemic moment makes them even more scarier to welcome them. First of all, because they really don't have the obligation or responsibility to welcome them, and then the second is because of the paranoia about the pandemic. They didn't really want to accept or welcoming foreigner in their country. And then the second is social distancing become irrelevant. Why I say irrelevant? Because as you may know, the government is encouraging us to have a physical distancing limit. But for them who live in the communities, it's hard to have a spatial distance, because they maybe in one roof they have more than 2 or 3 families. In some of the cases it's like that. So for refugees, it's hard to keep or maintaining the social distancing during this moment. And then the third is they having difficulties to access for a proper health kit, because once again they are not Indonesian. They cannot really access the rights for health, and then it made them really rely on the donor for the health kit, and then also the health tests and so on. And the last but not least is about the refugee children and their education rights, because before this moment they are having difficulties to enter the public schools. They having difficulties to have informal school, and by this moment, they also have difficulties to access online packaging like the other student. So even though that they have the same access to internet, not all of them can afford the cost of the internet. Okay, that's the overview about the struggle that they face. Next. But on Sandya Institute, what we have done as an actor, for this year, we are focusing on the education and the children refugee. Next. First of all, is conducting a webinar, and then second, publishing articles, and then the third is making a fundraising or conducting a donation. Next, for a webinar, we happen to conduct a webinar with titled Literacy Week, in where we are highlighting the importance of literacy and education for children, because at that time it was National Children's Day for Indonesia, but we want to try to be as inclusive as possible for them to celebrating the National Children's Day too. So the first phase is we are creating the webinar for that, with support from the UNHCR, with Miss Anne Mayman as one of the speaker, and then also Save the Children, and also author of the Red Ribbon, one of the book of poem. Next. The second is making and publishing an articles. In here, maybe it's not about the children, but about the general overview that refugee face during this pandemic. We have 2 articles that you can see in our website. And then the third is donation. Next slide. In here, at the first phase of the refugee, we are focusing on having a fundraising for necessary groceries. So in here, we are trying to give them supplies like for rice, oils, what they need, especially in the communities. And then the second phase is for the children. Next slide. We are focusing on the book donation in here. So we are open for the book donation, even if it's a used or new book that still can be used and can be read by the refugee. So in here, we are asking a donation about the children book, the book with the color and then the image. And next. In here, we are also getting a support from several organizations, also from several individuals that have donated, and then we successfully collected more than 300 books that we can deliver to refugee communities in Tangerang and Depok, and then also learning center that is being monitored by the Human Initiative also. In here, we are giving to Learning Center because they have a library. And then last but not least, we also have a chance to give them to communities, refugee communities in Medan through UNHCR. Next. Okay, I think about the donation in here, it's not like what we can do in the big picture, but what we can do little by little for them. Because refugee, as you may know, is Indonesia has not responsibility, but we as a human has responsibility for another human. So I think little by little, it's already enough for them to at least survive little by little too. Okay, that's all for me. Anything to ask, you may refer to the answer and question session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Natasha. So it was very quite interesting that Natasha explained to us the efforts that the refugee has and what Sandya Institute has been trying to contribute and offer help to these refugees. And what's quite interesting when she explained that the pandemic really does affect these refugees at that extent. But I would say I appreciate Sandya Institute very much for their very layered approach of efforts. By them trying to first with the research, they try to give up the knowledge to the people, and then for advocating, they are trying to contribute by public socialization and also by teaching to ensure these refugees' adaptation necessities. And then she also explained how they have tried to contribute more on this pandemic, even though previously they already contributed very much, in my personal opinion. And the pandemic does not stop them from trying to contribute more by giving a lot of those donations and a lot of the things that they thought is the main necessities amidst these pandemic. All right, thank you, Kak Natasha. That was very enlightening, actually. And next, after we previously listened from Kak Natasha how the pandemic really affected the situation from this refugee. To an extent, it really is that very significant, and how far Sandya Institute has been trying to contribute to their survival needs even. And next, before I call upon the third speaker, just checking, just making sure that none of us are asleep, because I know at these times nap really is the thing that is the most, I would say, intriguing, like a very intriguing offer from the world to us. So I'm just going to ask one thing. Just want to see the demographics right here, right now. Is anyone here, if anyone here is still in high school, you guys can try put the reactions, either just put your actual thumbs up or maybe use the reaction button. Just, seeing the demographics, Wow, there are high schoolers. I am proud of you guys. You guys are hustling at a very young age. Wonderful. Give you guys a pat on the back. And then maybe I'll try to see, are there anyone here that's in university right now? Maybe bachelor or diploma, I'm not sure. You may use the same reaction. Let me see that thumbs up on the screen, people. Wow, future young leaders. I'm proud of you guys. You will not regret joining this webinar, because I have to admit, so far it's been very enlightening. All right, so just checking, no one here is taking their power nap right now, right? You can take your power nap right after this. Okay, that's very great. Because after this, I have to make sure everyone look forward with this one, because this will be something that, in my opinion, would be something that is moving, I would say. So previously from Natasha explained how pandemic affected these refugees significantly. And from our third speaker, our third speaker here will give us more details on what Sandya, from the Sandya Institute, and quite possibly how all of us can actually contribute and help in our own ways. Without further ado, I will call upon the third speaker, which is Kak Karima Syahputra. So he has the extensive experience in terms of research development. He is specialized in disaster management, post-conflict recovery, and civil protection specialist. And one of his most notable experience would be being a researcher in Australia and Indonesian partnership in disaster management in Siaga program Jakarta, Indonesia. And then he is the project coordinator of the Center of Applied Human Rights at the University of York, Aceh, Indonesia. And he's also a researcher for Overseas Development Institute in Humanitarian Policy Group, Central Sulawesi, Indonesia. And like I explained previously, with his extensive research related experience, he will help us guide us to the knowledge of getting to know more on how pandemic really affected them, and maybe quite possibly how we can help. So Karima, are you here right now?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, hi Karima.
Hi.
Okay, you may take the floor.
Okay. So yeah, first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Rima Syahputra. I'm currently director of Detention Foundation, the Aceh-based organization established since 2013 that main focus on disaster management and refugees issue. So, and then I would like to say I'm very honored to join with you all today, specifically when I'm saying most of participants basically is a student, whether at high school and also university. I'm so glad to see how many youth people that want to involve and maybe to support the idea, the issue of refugee. I can see the bright future for refugees issue here in Indonesia specifically. Yeah, regard to today's meeting, since I'm basically mostly working with Rohingya refugees in Aceh, so I will talking from that point of view basically. So I'm trying to cover the other refugees issue, but since I'm mostly working with Rohingya, so my next explanation will be, Rohingya centrist things, we can say like that. So the first of all, I would like to say that commenting the recent situation in Aceh, where the local fishermen help the refugees stranded at sea, I can say this is like the couple of times the Acehese fishermen rescued and ashore these refugees stranded at sea, whether at Andaman Sea or whether at Strait Malacca Sea. So this rescue basically we can find the root idea in what we call the adat Aceh. So the spirit of rescue that's coming from the we can say the local customary law we got to see, or we can say in bahasa adat laut or in bahasa Aceh is adat laut, that obligate any fisherman at sea to help anyone at distress call in the sea. And by anyone, I mean here, that's not only applied for human, but also for other life being, including animals. So for Acehese fishermen, that seeing anyone at sea that need to help, that call for help, they oblige to help them. So this is the core, the core, the core or the essence of why Achenese fishermen oftentimes help the refugees stranded at sea. And this is not only applied for Rohingya refugees, because even there is a case like the Achenese fishermen help the other ethnicity like Tamil in 2016. So this is not so correct to say that Achenese only help you know the Muslim refugee, no, because the Achenese basically will help anyone that need at distress at sea. And regard to this rescue operation, this is basically starting in 2009 that we can link to the openness of Aceh that have achieved peace in 2005. And we can also link to the big conflict that happened in Myanmar in 2007, where this militant Buddhists attacking not only Rohingya people, but also including attacking the Buddhist Rakhine. So this is basically the political conflict that government of Myanmar trying to portray as, you know, the conflict in the terms of religion differences. But if we want to take a look more deeply, we can see this is specifically related with the political and economic issue actually, because the location or geographic location where these people, these Rohingya people live in Myanmar, basically is the area that government trying to build the pipeline for oil and gas, and also their shore, their offshore area is you know, based on research, they found like a huge deposit of oil and gas. So even though government trying to portray this as the religious issue, this is basically the economic and political issue. And I'm suggesting all the participants, if you want to go deep about this, you can dig it out in Google about this issue. Okay, and next we back to Aceh. So after help this refugee and bring them ashore, what happens then is basically the local community will honoring these people also. Honoring, I mean here, like providing with whatever they need. And this is also have the root in our culture, of our Acehese culture, that we call pemulia jame. It means honoring the guest, memuliakan tamu in our language. So it's easy so it's easy, as you can see in the media, that local community bring whatever they have at their home, you know, even like bananas, whatever they have, and share them to these refugees. So this is basically like showing how the local community support these refugees issue, not like trying to accommodate them in the long term or accommodate them permanently, but according to local, this is simple issue. You know, if you see there is a people that's suffering, so the first thing you have to do simply like helping with whatever you have. And so yeah, this is yeah, I think that's the simple minded that our local people have, and prove positive in this issue. And after that, the government altogether with UN institution and also including with the other humanitarian organization take over this response from the local community and bring these people into one location. This is basically good because this is what we call in this issue the term of ATD, alternative to detention, because before this, all of these refugees would go to the detention facility of immigration. But due to the incident in 2015, that basically getting a lot of attention from the world community by what Human Rights Watch call maritime ping pong, where all of government reject this refugee and push this refugee to each another. So this is like opening the chance for the refugee accommodation issue out of detention obligation as before. So now, starting in Aceh 2015, all of these refugees didn't put in detention anymore, but they put in one facility, the integrated facility, where even the security, even government put some security officer there, but we can say it's more free because the refugee didn't situated in room in detention, but this is like small village for them. So there is more freedom in here rather than traditional approach of detention before. And what government and UN bodies, including the humanitarian organization, do that is, establishing what called is the task force or satuan tugas in our language. And this satgas or task force basically copying the national task force system in disaster management. You can check in Google. We have this system cluster national. So the task force is divided into a couple of clusters like education, psychosocial, and there is a cluster of security, there is a cluster of health, etc. So based on that cluster, facilitate all organizations that want to involve in this humanitarian response as the coordination site, as the place where all policy is formulated and implemented. So even so, like the recent case in Aceh, in this year alone, we have 2 arrivals of refugees in Lok Sumawe, where our refugees about almost 400 refugees right now. So all of these 400 refugees situated in a vocational training facility, the abandoned building. And then for the camp management, government, UN, and organization set up the task force that have like 5 cluster, like food cluster, health cluster, education and psychosocial cluster, security cluster, and the last is I forgot it, but there is a 5 cluster. So all of organization everywhere from around the world involved in this cluster, coordinate with other organization and delivering their humanitarian services inside. So, yep, I think that's the main point from my speaking today. I think better to continue with question and answer session because I don't know what to speak actually. I just want to see how the question for our participant was. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Karima. So Karima previously explained that how are the correlations and the relations between the refugees and the government. And with that, I will be opening the question and answer session. But before that, I'm going to ask two questions first. Since that I imagine there are a lot of beginner MUNers participants in here, maybe some of you aren't still have a kind of like a difficulty to grasp like how is this politically driven and like how does the mind process behind the refugee as a consequences of political interest works. So Karima, if you don't mind, can you explain how are these refugees are supposed to be politically driven, consequences from a politically driven actions, and as a country, how do they act regarding the refugee issues? Maybe from one of our speakers can answer that.
Yeah. Uh, I think for Indonesia, because we are not ratified country, so there is no obligation for our government to respond this issue. But since the public demands our government to help these refugees, so this is like we can say government doing in favor of public. But since we have no regulation that that's strict on this issue, so what I can say, there is no way for us to to ensure the right of refugees, because there is no rule of an obligation for our government. And yeah, so, and I think there is a political side also from this, because the government doesn't want to seem as supportive with this refugee, because they are afraid more of thousands refugee will come and arrive in Indonesia. So government trying to to display that they don't want these people, but since our community demand them, so yeah, we help them in the end. So this is like the half heart, we can say the half heart, yeah, setengah hati,
Like wishy-washy kind of
yeah,
thing.
kind of that. Yeah, I think that's.
Yeah, that is quite interesting though. You point out that Indonesia actually doesn't have any obligations. So seeing that they don't have the obligation, is it possible for our country to actually decline or rejects their arrival to our country? Is it technically possible?
Yes, I think that's happened in the in before, right? I think it's happened, but since there is strong demand from not only from local community but also from national community, government have no way to avoid from this public demand. But it's happened in before. So, but yeah, I think in the current world where all of nation and countries connected, and it's easy for public to have information, like everyone have handphone now, and can take videos, so it's more harder for government to avoid this this is not law regulation, but this is like humanitarian obligation. When you see there's a people that's suffering, you must help. I think that's the most important thing in this issue, rather than we go to this law issue.
So it really does makes a difference on the people's opinion on this. Seeing that you said that they can't say, because it's wishy-washy, because the government can say no to the public demands. So if we strive further to push our country to even ratify it, do you think it's possible?
Yes, I think that's what Achenis did before, and also in recent case where the the central government basically trying to reject these refugees, but local people, even make a demonstration near location to, like begging government to allow these refugees ashore first, and we can give them like the first help, and after that we can discuss about what we should do next. So this is a very practical solution provided by public itself, actually.
Okay. That is very interesting, actually. I'm going to take some questions from the chat box here. Seeing that we already discussed on how government and how the public demands actually contributed to giving actions and efforts to these refugees, I would like to know, there's this question from Iqbal Maulana. He is from Universitas Jenderal. I'm sorry, it's cut. I can't read the whole institution. This is from Iqbal Maulana. He asked, does local government receive funds from the central government for taking care of these refugees? It is quite interesting because I've seen like BNPB or some other government divisions trying to help them, but do they even receive like designated funds for helping these refugees?
I think local government, we, of course they will need the support from national government, but based on experience, it is basically self-financing by the local government, because the national government, I'm not sure whether they have a allocation for this or not, because since we have no regulation about this, so it translated in a budgeting system, like there is no nomenclature for this refugee thing, so there is no way for us to spending directly to these refugees. So what the local government did, like we can say like modified, or maybe for the youth community we can say like hacking the budget. It is it allocated for the other things basically, but since we have to deal with these refugees issue, government took the budget, like the social assistance budget, or maybe the budget for disaster things, and transfer the budget for refugees need. But beside the local government spending, thanks to international organizations, specifically UN bodies, and including various international and specifically national humanitarian agencies that bring adequate funds to refugees in Aceh. We have no much issue in terms of finance actually, but still, of course, if you ask to local government, they need the national support, whether in form of regulation or the funds, other fund supports.
Okay, thank you, Karima. For this question, I would like to ask to Ka Sydney and Ka Natasha. So previously, the thing is, Indonesian people knows that most of these refugees comes from a conflict that's because of religion based. And as like we know, it's not really always about religion. So do both of you have any insight on how we can not eradicate, I would say, just to modify that stigma, and it could contribute to help these refugees further? Maybe I'll ask from Ka Sydney first, and then I'll ask to Ka Natasha.
Okay, yes, that is a very common conception and perception from public because most of the refugees that come to Indonesia is from Afghanistan and Somalia, and they mostly from the country with majority of their religion same with us. So sometimes people thinking to help them as a fellow religion with fellow as religious support, right? But in field actually there are many public that react negatively toward them, not negatively but more like suspicious like that. So that's why we often holding a seminar or webinar or campaign in our social media just to change the image about refugee that don't help them just because we share the same religion, but also because they're also fellow human being. They need our support, they need our help. And maybe Natasha can add more.
Yes, go ahead, Kak Natasha.
Okay, so from people's point of view, aside from the religion, they also think that the refugee came to Indonesia is mostly because they want to seek for a better opportunity. That's why some of the people in Indonesia, they are afraid that the more refugee comes, the more that the job field will be taken from the real Indonesian people. But that's not true because as we have known before, the Indonesia has not ratified the Refugee Confession, and that's why Indonesia also has no responsibility yet to provide them for the job or economic. But aside from that stigma, we also have stigma about other things because abusive people from foreign countries, and then many more stories that make them more afraid to welcome more people. While in here, refugees or asylum seeker mostly came from their countries because first, yes, you're right, they're having a oppression because of their religion. The other refugees also having difficulties to study because she is a female. In some countries, some females have not yet an opportunity to access an education. Other refugees, they also have to flee from their country because they are having a different race than the majority, and also because of the individual oppression. Let's say that your family is oppressed by what we call bad groups in their country. It's like that. So many more reasons for people to seek refuge in other countries because they think that their government cannot protect them anymore. So they need to seek from others. And I think that's conception that we need to have first, because refugee is different case from economic migrant. They have their own trauma, they have their own difficulties, and most of them are struggling in their way to Indonesia or in their way to the destination. Not every refugees are surviving to their destination. Some of them are even dead in the sea. So I think that's why all the organization needs to raising the awareness about the difference between these asylum seekers and refugee and the other economic migrant. I think that's from.
Okay, thank you, Kak Sydney, Kak Natasha. Next, I will ask the question. This is going to be a little bit specific, and I think I would ask this to all of our three speakers. It's a question from Dusman Tadash. He asked that Why do governments do not provide permanent residence certificates if they spend more than 5 years and above, seeing that they're already staying a long time, maybe they're already adapted enough to become a citizen from that country? Thus, why do they not receive the rights to have a permanent residence?
Okay.
Maybe I'll.
I think I will answer first, like I explained about the state party and non-state parties. Unfortunately, Indonesia is not a state party. We haven't ratified the Refugee Convention yet. So no matter how long they spend time in here, I know you might be think that if they already spend several years in here, they already understand our culture, our language. When I teach the refugees in our learning center back then, there are some refugees that already speak Indonesian that quite well, but because we are not the state party, we can't fulfill the claim, including permanent resident. So they in here just this is like just a transit phase for them until they get a host country. And sadly, yeah, if we haven't ratified the convention yet, they just stay here, just stay as transit, even it's already 5 years or 10 years. That's for me. I think Bang Rima and Natasha can add more.
Yeah, I think this is more on political fear at our government, because this is like send the message to 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 people in the conflict area that Indonesia is open for everyone to come. So, but this is, in my opinion, this is unnecessary fear actually, because Indonesia will never be the main destination for all of these refugees, because like in Rohingya case, I believe their main destination is going to Malaysia, and for Afghanistan they basically want to come to Australia. So Indonesia still act like springboard, or we can say the transit for them before they can reach the main destination. I think there is no need for us to keep this fear, this afraidness, because in terms of economic, I believe we're still not the best choice for them, because our economic is not so high in terms of you know income generating and everything. And yeah, as we already aware too, even Indonesian people going to Malaysia to have some economic profits, right? So our country is not the best choice for them, so there is no need for us to keep this afraid. But yeah, I think government want to keep the status of as the transit countries, because we don't want to send the message that we open to everyone to come. I think that's the main idea behind why government did not providing permanent residence for these refugees.
Okay, from my point of view, in here, if we're talking about providing a place to stay for the refugees, even though that Indonesian government has no obligation to provide the facility for them, but don't forget that we have the UNHCR, we have IOM, International Organization for Migration, that actively giving actively giving support for the refugees. And by giving support, that means that they have to also collaborating with the Indonesian government, because they cannot do it by themselves. They have to also cooperating with the Indonesian government, especially the Ministry of Law and Human Rights. So I think even though that we don't really obligated to provide the facility. Indonesia can give a suggestion. Indonesian government can also give suggestion to ask for more support for the international organization that providing the support for the for refugees, and also for that many countries that has not ratified refugee convention like Indonesia, but I think by the going from years to years, our country has some progress, not big progress, but little by little, they are more open to supporting the assistance, supporting the what did I say? Supporting the communities and monitoring the communities. And I think that's that we need to pursue in the future, so they can have more opportunities and more help by our government.
Okay, thank you, Natasha. So next, this is also a question I would like to give all of our speakers here. This is quite interesting, actually. It's taking more of a general scope of the problem. Elisa Rahma Putri from Undip asked that, remembering that the poverty in Indonesia is already high, should we still consider to help the refugees? And her second question is, what is UNHCR contribution for the refugee that settles in Indonesia?
First?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the answer is simple. Even though we have the high poverty, we still have to help this refugee. Why? Because in the end, they will try with everything they can to reach our country. So if you didn't facilitate this process, this refugee issue will become like a wild issue, you know, when they coming illegally and you have no way and you have no facility to accommodate them, it will create more and bigger issue. And it's expensive compared if you allocated some funds to help them, facilitate them, and maybe can find like short-term solution for them, right? And then if we reject this refugee, I believe it will create another following issue, because if you reject them, it will be like the international incidents where the other country will seeing you as the bad nation, as the bad country, and your government is seeing like inhuman government. So it will create another headache, I believe. So we have no much choice unless dealing with this issue with the best we can do. And I think like our Minister of Foreign, Ms. Retno already said like Indonesia accept these people based on humanitarian ground, but due to this decision, so Indonesia somehow like have a right to asking the other international institution and the other country to show them international solidarity, so help Indonesian government to dealing with this issue. Because if you didn't help, if you didn't involve, there is no way you can ask the other to help you. So again, if the question is, should we help them? Yes, because we have to dealing with this issue. Otherwise, this issue will going wild, going illegally, and it will become harder for us to solve this thing in the future if we didn't enforce since the first. And the second question, I think UNHCR contribution basically on registration and designated the status for refugees, and I believe there is a follow-up contribution like funds for psychosocial education thing. I believe UNHCR also have program like accommodation for refugees. Yeah, I think UNHCR already made contribution, but the most important thing, I believe, there is not only international organization that contribute in this issue. You have to see also our local community contribute also, and not only local community. I mean like the Achenese people, but I see in the site that there is a lot of help from Jakarta's people also. So this is not like a government and international organization that help refugees, but also our community, whether at local or national. So we have to put the highlight on this thing, rather than thinking this is only government or UN responsibilities only.
Okay, I'll entertain Kak Natasha first, and then I'll entertain Kak Siti.
Okay. For the question about do we need to help them and while we still having poverty issues? Yes, I agree with Bang Rima that we still have to help them. And then about the poverty, like I have mentioned before, it is one of the stigma that our Indonesian people has, that they are afraid that there's still a lot of Indonesian people that in the poverty line. There's still a lot of people that unemployment, and they're afraid that more foreign people come, the more they will suffer because they will have more limited options for them. But that's not the thing that we should concern in here, because these two is really different cases. Okay, the Indonesian people is the responsibility of the Indonesian government, but for them it's an international human rights issue. And although we don't really ratify the Convention of Refugee, we still have applied to some of the human rights issue. One of them is like Convention on the Rights of the Child. Indonesia is one of the signatories in that. In this, we can see more. It's like some of the passenger in the boat that they use from the conflicting countries to Indonesia. There are children in the boat, so we still need to taking care of that, because we also have to take a look from the human rights point of view. And also we have to take a look from the non-refoulement principle, because we cannot send back them to the place that they are tortured with. So I think that thing about the poverty, about the job, and then about the refugee is two things that cannot really it's not really in line, because the scope is different. And for UNHCR, I have mentioned also about what UNHCR and IOM has supported from their daily needs, also some of the facilities. And you don't have to forget that we also have local communities like Gutanyo Foundation, Sandya Institute. We also try to keep raising the issue, and also keep trying to at least help them to help them in what we are capable of. Some organizations are capable of providing the legal help. Some organizations are able to providing the training. Some organizations are able to providing the other things. So I think we have to strengthen the grassroots first for this issue, because on the national level, it's too much hands on that, too much issue on that. So I think that what we need to concern is the grassroots communities and how to change the point of view of the people, because that's what we did in the last few years, and it shows some progress from how people see the refugee back then in the 2011. It's different from what they see of refugee to now. We can see from the participant in here, there are 90 more students that are interested about this issue. So I think that's a good improvement too.
Okay, good. Thank you, Natasha. And I'll entertain Sydney.
Okay, I think Natasha and Bang Rima already explained thoroughly about the problem between poverty and refugee, and I agree with them because actually our issues with poverty, Indonesian own issue with poverty, not really hand on hand with the refugee, because we know that poverty in Indonesia have a more deep roots. It's a long problem since our country changed from the government to government. It still happen. Different province, different area have different problem with the poverty. So if we want to shift the, not the blame, what is it? If you want to say that if refugee arrive here and get the same chance to work or to get education, and that would affect our poverty condition, I think that is like shifting blame to outsider, when actually if we want to talk about the poverty, we should check on our country first, because the main problem with our poverty actually is between us itself. It's an internal problem with our country. So let's not framing that from outsider, especially for the refugee, because they came here not really because they want, they need another place that they can stay for a while until they got host country that not torture them, that give them safety. That's it for me, I think.
Okay, thank you. So I'll try to conclude that. So from the answers, I can conclude that first of all, okay, and this might also answer Sakti Khairulah's question, which is why we can't help and accept refugees from other countries in the pandemic era. For starters, in general speaking, okay, we do not ratify the 1951 Refugee Convention relating to the status of the refugee, and then its protocol in 1967. But however, as like Natasha has explained, but we do also ratify other rights, such as the children's rights, and then the Declaration of Human Rights. And then also, if I'm not mistaken, the CEDAW as well, and then the discrimination one, yeah, that one. And then, and it really isn't a matter of we shouldn't help them because they are outsiders. It really is more like a humanitarian issue on how we can help each other. And it is, and to answer that moral dilemma, we can just like instead of doing a blame game, might as well just try to give our best on what we can offer them to help us. This is more like a moral and ethical thing instead of questioning whether it is efficient or effective economically. That is how I see it. And then thank you for the answers. Okay, for these next questions, I'm going to try to ask you guys one by one. There is this very interesting question from, if I'm not mistaken, Putri Rahmanita from Trisakti. She asked that, I'm going to ask this question to Kasitni. Kasitni, Putri asked that, what do you think of the benefits that for having different types of protection from those fleeing dangerous situations and for countries accepting to host them from those dangers? Yeah. You may answer, Kasitni.
Okay. If you're talking the benefit, I don't think it is the right term, because when we talk about refugee, we are talking about humanity issues and about moral issue in international world, because most of the refugee that left is different with the migrant worker. That's why I said let's not get misconception between migrant and asylum seeker and refugees, because they left because they need a better place for them to live. They left not like the migrant worker, for example. Migrant worker crossing international border because they want to get a job, they want to be employed, and their main goal is to get money, of course. And that's different with refugee get out from their country not because they want it, but they have to survive. That's why actually if we want to talk about the benefit, I can't really say there are any economical benefit, for example, or maybe other benefit, because that's a different area and different topic. But it is more to the moral topic in here, because like Bang Rima said and Natasha said, if we don't help them, if country ignore them, then we will condemn, not directly, like not direct punishment, but we will get framed as a bad nation, as immoral, because we don't help people that need to be rescued like that. That's why I can't really say that there are benefit. But for the refugee, of course, they got the benefit, that is safe place to live, safe place to stay. I think that's my answer. Maybe if other speaker want to add more, please. But in conclusion, I can say there are any economic or material benefit, because this is a moral issue. I hope that answer the question.
Yeah, I think we have to put the benefit in wider sense. So it's not like the short-term benefit. I mean, like economical benefit, but we have to see from the wide view of what we call benefit. So if we widening this definition up to political aspect, we can see that if we help another ethnicity, another people, that when they're fleeing, it is like investing a good uh, how to say this. This is like the good investment for the future, because when you help these people and they succeed with their struggle, this is like the your friendship at the school and campus also. If you help the other when they really need it, you have strong friendship, right? And by this strong friendship, you can do a lot of bigger thing in the future with them. So if the question of benefit, we can expand into political life in the future. I believe if Indonesia help these refugees, we will have a very good and strong connection with so many ethnicity we already help in the future. And it will, payback. We can say payback. I know this is not the right word, but, they can pay back us in terms of like trading, trading relationship, economical relationship. And maybe if they succeed with their economic life, we can talking about investment in the future, exchange of investment, exchange of culture, exchange of so many strategic and important project with them in the future. So in my opinion, if we help them, if Indonesian people help them, it is a good investment. If we want to see this from the sense of benefit, that's it.
Okay, Natasha, would you like to add in as well?
I think the answer from both of the speakers that have explained about the situation, about the benefit, I think that's already concludes, but I don't think that benefit is really the right term for humanitarian issues, because if we're talking about benefit, it's more like a business. So I don't really refer to that term. But the answer from Sydney and Bang Rima is already conclude my opinion also. Thank you.
Okay, then, thank you. So just seeing that there's a lot of young demographics, I'm going to ask this, I would say, it's not like personal, more like I'm going to ask a question. Would you guys mind sharing your experience and contributing and helping these refugees that it might help us give a more image on what they are facing and maybe how it feels to help them directly? Maybe I'll start from Natasha first.
Okay. For the refugee, I think my my latest impression or my latest experience is about conducting the book donation, because at that time we can really see on how they really need of education, and how they really need to learn about literacy, because the literacy is can be learned from the books, and we have to know that these refugees are not coming from the countries that having English as their main tongue or the main language. It's difficult for them to even communicate in basic conversation. So at that time, the Sandya Institute team are seeing the refugee children. They are very excited when they are seeing the books, and when they are seeing that the library is filled up with the new books that they haven't seen it before, because usually they are learning about numbers, they are learning about words, grammar maybe, but when they are seeing the storybook with colors and pictures, I think that's their expression and the way they're welcoming the new experience of seeing things, of seeing people, seeing inspiring people in the books is hopeful, I think, because not all people can access internet to looking up for the information. Not every people can access school. Not every refugee can access private. Not every refugee even cannot. Not every refugee even can access the learning center, because maybe they have difficulties with the transportation, they have difficulties with the distance. But seeing that the place that they are studying is filled with new chance for them to learning English or learning Bahasa in a more interactive way, I think that's really impressive for me.
That's very wholesome. I'm actually really touched hearing that. Maybe Kasitni would like to share your experience to us as well.
Okay, I want to share my experience. I think it's still related with Natasha because we work together in Sandya Institute. But last year, I handle our learning center. So we run a learning center last year, and I am one of the teacher. I teach them Bahasa Indonesia, and most of the refugees are around our age. They are mostly teenagers. So they are very excited to accept education, even though Bahasa Indonesia that I taught them just basic like direction, basic grammar, and maybe a short paragraph, but they are really willing to learn, even though they stay here just for a while, not forever, but they really excited to get new information about our country, about our language, and also we have bahasa English class, and they are very they really give a good response, and they are very willing to learn about English and Indonesia. That's why they are so excited when we gave them book from our book donation, because they can study more words and more paragraph example rather than just basic grammar that I taught them in learning center. And also in our learning center, we taught them other soft skills like Microsoft Office, because that is necessary, and they keep asking us if they can learn more skills in future. That's why I think they need the access for education, even though it's informal. And like Natasha said, that not every refugee could access a learning center. That's why we still try to find a way to give them how to give them education during the pandemic, like that. So just imagine they're around your age, but they can't access the same education like you all when they really want to study. They really want to get the education. That's my impression when I teach in our learning center.
That's really that's another wholesome story right there. Maybe from Karima, from your experiences in heavy research, do you have any personal experience you would like to share to us?
Yeah, there is interesting thing with these Rohingya people, because since they are stateless due to Myanmar regulation that expel them from the citizen status. So these people basically rejected for accessing the school and health and other basic service, you know, as commonly citizens everywhere in the world. So, and this is happens not only like years ago, but like few decades ago. So if you want to see how a community could be without education for more than decades, you can see that in Rohingya. They don't know what school is. They don't know, even I found the case, their children don't know what the pencil is. They don't know what the book is. So, so this is the best experience, I think, specifically in the case of 2018, near to my home, that we found the case, this bunch of Rohingya children, they don't even know how to use the pencils, and they don't know what the school is, how to dealing with schooling system. They don't even know the teacher. So when we bring these children into a class, they didn't see the class as a class, as we see a class. They just saw the class like playing ground from them. So this is, in from my personal perspective, this is like the first time I see how the community, how a nation could be without education for more than decades. So if you want to see how Indonesia could be without school for more than a decade, you can see the Rohingya now. So that's why our biggest challenge is relying in education issues. Specifically, if we want to help these people, I think the only way for them to solve this issue in the future is only with education. If we can provide the best education for them, there's a chance for this generation to experience school and maybe to, to go somewhere else, extend their education, and maybe, could be whatever they want, because we believe education is the only way for the people to grow. So if there is no education, could you imagine how it could be? And then I think there's another unfortunate things also experience with this Rohingya woman. Since they are forbidden to have school, forbidden to working, forbidden to do everything as normally life. So there is nothing in Rohingya woman unless when they grow up, they only seeing the marriage as their way out of their life. So that's why most of Rohingya women, basically, even they are teenager, they already married. So the earlier marriage among Rohingya women is very common. Even we found a case like this teenager, 15 years, she's already married. And can you imagine how this young couple must be dealing, suppose they have children? So that's why the number of children violence, I mean domestic violence within refugees community is also high also. So that's why we see the education the only way, not only for Rohingya, but specifically the best solution for Rohingya women. If they have education, they can delay their marriage. They can prepare themselves better for house, domestic life, and they can even have better economic life, better jobs. So this is the main idea so far with us in Aceh regarding to Rohingya refugee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karima. To be very honest, these very emotional intakes really moves me, and I can see there are also similar questions like the ones that I'm going to have
Dan
now.
dinaikin dong.
Okay, and then as a form of conclusion as well, can all of our speakers tell us, is it possible for us to contribute or maybe donate? And if so, how can we help? Maybe I'll ask from, maybe one of the speakers would like to take the floor.
I think Natasha can answer first, then I will add more.
Okay. As donation, we already ended that project for now. Currently, we are focusing on raising more funds because there are certain needs from the learning center and refugee communities, but we have to, we cannot say that, oh, we're going to donate health kit, oh, we're going to donate clothes, oh, we're going to donate other things. We cannot really specify what we will donate because most of them are living in the same place with the other families. So like I said before, in one place there are more than there are more than one families. So if we cannot provide enough items, there will be refugee families that cannot access the donation. So our current focus is raising funds that can be donated through our bank account, which will be presented in the last session of this webinar. And we also partnered with several organizations such as Jaksical, Jakarta Musical Crew, and with FPCI, Foreign Policy from University of Indonesia, ODMUN. We are currently collaborating in collecting funds for refugees in need, specifically in Jabodetabek area and Medan and Aceh that needs, according to the needs from communities that later on we will communicate again with the UNHCR. Maybe Sydney can add more.
Okay, so already mentioned by Natasha that we currently more into the raising fund, not in stuff like before we give like rice or oil or books, because we have to confirm first with the refugee what they need. So we start with raising money, and after we know what they need by contacting our partners, then we will allocate it based on the needs of the refugees. And because like Natasha also said, they live in the same area with other refugees, so we have to confirm with them first, and it is much more easier to allocate to them later if we already know what they need. And yeah, you can check on the, I think the ODMUN team already put our logo and our contact information here. Yeah, so you can contact us if you want more information. You can contact us through our email or maybe on our Instagram.
Okay, thank you very much for the speakers. If possible, you guys can take some time to screenshot this. We will also share this information later. We will let you know if we're going to give it out via WhatsApp or via Instagram. Just wait for updates. So today we've learned a lot of enlightening things actually. So first, how does a definition from refugee, asylum seeker, and migrants make much of a difference? And then the scope of the international and the national issues on how these refugee issues are perceived. And also some contributions from NGOs such as UNHCR, IOM, and especially from Sandya Institute. And we have also heard how the pandemic really affects them. And one of the things that I find the most interesting are the emotional aspects of all of our speakers' experience on when they try to contribute directly to these refugees. So without further ado, I'm going to close this. I would like to thank everyone that has come here, and especially I would thank also the speakers. Thank you very much for Kak Sydney, Kak Natasha, and Karima. And next we will start with the certificate. And for the MC, you may take the floor. Perling, are you here?
All right. Yes.
Okay.
Or I'll be passing out certificate. The one who shares screen. We'd like to pass out a certificate of appreciation to our speaker, our first speaker of today. Anybody can help us with the picture taking? Okay, I'll help. Okay, wait a minute. I'm gonna pin Miss Sydney for a moment, and all right. So I'll be taking one.
Yes, we still have a little bit of a technical issue for a while. We're going to wait for the MC to finish the issue. Just let us know if it's done.
All right, it's done. And
Okay.
the next speaker. Thank you so much for being our speaker, Miss Sydney.
Thank you for having me as well for this event. I'm sorry if there's any mistakes when I give you the materials or when I answer the questions. Thank you so much for the time.
We will have our second speaker. All right, she is Miss Natasha Clarissa, the project manager. As our second speaker, I'll take one picture. 1, 2, 3. All right, thank you so much. And last but not least, our last speaker, which is Mr. Rima. Is Mr. Rima here?
Yes, I can see he's being present right now.
All right, let me check on it. I didn't saw it. Mr. Rima.
Dearling, there he is.
Would you please help me to pin it out?
I already pinned it out.
It's not pinned in my. Okay, thank you. All right, thank you for speaking in our webinar. All right, thank you. Can we move on to this next slide? So guys, we have come to the end of the webinar held by Online Distancing MUN and Sandya Institute. So if you guys would like to donate, contribute, and make a difference, so you guys can check the bank account and donate yours. And link to our certificate is also shown in the slides. So you guys can fill in the link and you will receive your certificate shortly. Well, we have come to the end of the webinar. So to close this webinar, I'd like to close with one quotation by Tony Robbins, which is, "Don't try to be perfect, just be an example of a perfect human being." I'm Perling and I'm signing out as your master of ceremony today. All right, do we need a photo session for everyone, I think, right?
Yes, yes.
Yes,
please.
definitely.
All right, I'm going to stop. All right, you guys can take a look at the screen for about 1 minute and we'll do picture taking after that.
Make sure to give the biggest smile.
While we wait for, sorry, just 1 second. I'm just going to apologize for those who I didn't cover for their questions. If you guys still want your questions to be answered, you guys can try to contact them directly via their email. And once again, thank you very much for coming.
All right, now we're going to have a picture taking. I'm going to stop sharing the screen. We'll make sure that this last slide will be sent to you so you can still see the bank account and also the link to certificate. All right, now we'll do picture taking. It will be 4 times. So give your best smile. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Stop the chat for a moment because like it's gonna block some of the screen. 1, 2, 3. Okay. That's all. All right, that's all. That's all. Thank you so much for joining, and we hope to see you in another chance.
Thank you for having us as speakers.
Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
so very much.
Thank you for coming.
Thank
Thank
you,
you so much.
everyone. Bang Rima, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
So much,
everyone.
Mark.
Thank
You guys.
Thank you. Don't forget to
Bye.
fill the feedback form, yeah.
Guys, for those of you that would like to get the certificate, don't forget to do the link,
Feedback
yeah,
form.
for the form, okay? Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the
Thank you,
information.
everyone.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you next time again.
I'm starting to get robotic. Bye bye.
Thank you for the nice event.
Can then like, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming.
Guys, the secretariat, just stay here, yeah. The secretariat.
I think we can stop recording this.